I'm talking to 1,000+ people right now who spend hours and hours and hours going to the gym to look better, right? Don't tell me that you're doing it just for your health. It's great that it helps your health, but don't tell me that the reason you got into the gym and you spent hours and hours and hours curling and benching was for your health. It's because you want bigger arms. Girls doing hip thrusts want a bigger butt. We are doing this largely to look better. What's up, guys? So today we are going to do a response video both to Jeffrey Verity Schofield as well as Derek from More Plates, More Dates, talking about both the Zac Efron transformation that happened about a year ago. People were talking about it, as well as just masculinity standards in general. I actually just happened to see a video reference from Jeffrey. He was talking about, I guess, standards and this looks maxing. What the fuck is this called?
The mandible, the glabella, the nasum, mandibles length, the mandible, Chiconian.
I came across this video of Jeffrey where he was talking about this segment on, how to look ideal. And I was just joking around saying I've heard these words before because he was talking about the ramus and the mandible and the glabella and all these things like that. I was like, well, let me actually look at what the video was. And it was talking about Zac Efron's transformation. I was surprised because I knew I did a video on this about a year ago, but I guess the topic had resurfaced. Even though Derek from More Plates, More Dates had done a video himself about a year ago, I guess he also made a more recent one. So the reason I felt like I was a great person to talk about this is because people were talking about, well, maybe there was the one plastic surgeon who said it was maybe wisdom teeth removal. And he's like, well, if you had your wisdom teeth removed, did you look like this?
I actually think he's had dental surgery, not plastic surgery. That's why he's swollen in these areas. If you've had your wisdom teeth taken out, did you look like this?
I was like, no, I never looked like this. I've taken out thousands of people's teeth and I've never seen anybody look like this. It's very odd that a plastic surgeon would think this was wisdom tooth removal. And I think Jeffrey and Derek both agreed with me there. But I've also given filler and Botox and things like that. And so I think that's probably more in line, not Botox, but the filler for Zac Efron, potentially implants there. Obviously, he has had some work done, and it's an unfortunate situation to see how people have reacted to him since then. But I think it's all relevant to the topic at hand. I think I might actually have a different perspective here than Jeffrey. We'll see where we agree and disagree. But basically, it was the topic of acceptance versus trying to improve oneself. And of course, you do have to strike a balance. We all want to improve in life, but at some point you have to realize enough is enough. And where do you find that balance? That is hard. And obviously somebody like Zac Efron was one of the most sought after male actors in the world, really, right? Obviously his performance in Baywatch, he was pretty much shown as the epitome of an ideal body, as far as what most people would want, right? Not a bodybuilder, but super aesthetic. And obviously by his own comments there, very hard to maintain. Even somebody like Zac Efron, who most people consider extremely attractive, still felt the need to get some procedures done. And then he was constantly asked about it. And it's tough for some of these actors, I think, when they're asked about something they don't want to talk about, but they have to talk about it because they're on a talk show. And they say, well, what happened? And then he starts referencing falling and breaking his jaw and 7 or 8 years ago. You see this with The Rock as well, when people say, well, have you taken steroids?
What's up, guys? Derek, moreplatesmoredates.com. Today we're going to be talking about what steroid cycle I think The Rock is.
Is he a fake natty? It's like, well, he wasn't the one who brought it up in the first place. So if you're forcing him to answer the question, he comes up with some kind of BS answer, but it's very different than people will see on social media who say, I'm natural, I'm natural, I'm natural, and they go out of their way to talk about it. But a little off topic there, but just to say, it's hard probably to be in that position where you're forced to answer these things. Jeffrey also talked about how there are a lot of people who use fake posts and fake comments. And again, I think it depends on the perspective. So in one sense, it's sad that somebody would feel the need to do that. However, for a lot of people, social media is their business. And just like some people would maybe advertise for their business on TV or on YouTube or whatever, I think some people will just, in a sense, pay money to look like they have a bigger following. He mentioned Phil Heath even did this. I can think of trainers I know who have absolutely done this. I mean, they haven't told me, but I can look and see the number of followers they have and the likes that they get, and then the either total lack of engagement or the fake engagement, right, of just spam bots and things like that. So it's very common, and I'm not saying that somebody is necessarily right or wrong for doing it. However, I think it's important to have it out there that these things happen, and just like with plastic surgery and a lot of these situations with celebrities, what you're seeing may not be reality. However, when it comes to the topic of plastic surgery and these procedures, I'm not necessarily against it. And I think a lot of the people that constantly preach acceptance are often kind of full of it, in that they themselves are not accepting it. And I've seen this with a lot of women. I've had actually, so it was supposed to be a podcast on mine, and I didn't post it because I felt that it was not genuine. And I had somebody who I knew personally. I mean, this was a physical therapist who was telling me that she was so happy that she had gained this weight and she was 15 to 20 pounds heavier, but she felt so much better about herself, et cetera, et cetera. And, you know, ladies, it's all about acceptance and all these things. And yet, when we did the podcast, she was dressed to the nines. She had tons of makeup on. And afterwards, she told me that she wanted to lose 15 pounds for summer. And so you can't tell me how you have all this stuff about body positivity and you're so happy to gain weight, but then almost immediately after tell me that you really want to diet down and you want a boob job and you want to get liposuction and whatnot. It's like, well, if you want to do those things, that's fine, but then don't preach to all of these other people how it's all about body acceptance, right? We see a lot of these people do this as well on social media where they will say, okay, well, you just got to love yourself and you're beautiful and it doesn't matter about if you do yourself up or anything like that. But then they will post very filtered pictures, or they'll even post unfiltered pictures saying, see, I post my bad pictures. And in reality, we all know this is a good picture of you. It just maybe doesn't have, you don't have makeup on, but you still know it's a great picture of you. We've seen this with some bodybuilders too, where they're like, oh, look at me in the off season. I'm so fat. It's like, yeah, you're showing a higher body fat percentage picture of you while also having great gym lighting and a pump, etc. This is actually a point I made about the Jeff Side video, doing kind of the opposite, which I think was fine when he was posting his quote unquote fat pictures. And it's like, honestly, this same guy in good lighting would look fantastic. And so I just think a lot of this stuff on acceptance, it's not that I disagree with it, it's that it's kind of BS sometimes. There's one girl I remember seeing on YouTube where she went on and on and on about how, you know what, I shouldn't need to get a nose job. Now I love my nose and I'm happy with it. And you know what, like I shouldn't feel pressured. And she's got a pretty big following. This same girl talks about how she constantly is recontouring and doing all these things to make her nose look a certain way. And it's like, if you're spending hours and hours making yourself look like you have, in this case, this smaller nose, should you really be preaching to people about acceptance? Like, it kind of just sounds like maybe you're scared to get the surgery, but you clearly want a smaller nose because you keep talking about how you do all this contour and everything to make it look better. So you haven't really accepted it. So why are you putting the message out there that it's all about that if that's not what you've done yourself? So for me, I guess that's the issue I have with it. It's like, okay, so if you think about it, where is the problem where it becomes too much, right? Where along the line, if you do have a problem with it, what is the actual reason behind it and where is the line, right? So when does it become too much? So as like a joking analogy, when I was on vacation, one of the people there, she was saying that she didn't like peanut butter. And I was like, how could you not like peanut butters? And she says, well, I like peanuts. I just don't like peanut butter. And I again, jokingly, obviously, I said, well, do you chew the peanuts in your mouth? At some point, it becomes peanut butter, right? So do you like crunchy peanut butter? Like, where is the point where you like peanuts and you hate peanut butter, right? So it's like, okay, so in the case of women here, it's like, well, you're okay with makeup. Sure, everybody's okay with makeup. Okay, well, what about these products that are kind of harsh, right? Maybe like a retinoic acid or something like that, or retinol. Okay, yeah, that should be fine. Okay, well, plastic surgery, no, totally not fine. Well, what about some Botox? Sure. Well, maybe filler, I'm just saying it's not a clear line of when something becomes a problem. And I'm not saying I have the answer for that either. That's where I think it is important, like Jeff said, about balance versus acceptance. I just think it's not a clear line. This is something I would say to a lot of men too, where there's this kind of logical inconsistency where some people will say that they do not want to take steroids because it's cheating, even though they don't compete in anything. It's cheating. Oh, that's, it's such a wrong thing to do. It's morally a problem. And it's like, okay, so is it morally a problem or do you just not want the side effects? Because if you're somebody who is totally wants all natural, you don't want to have anything in your body that is not just from natural food, okay, then you're being logically consistent. But do you take creatine? If you take creatine, why are you taking creatine? Based on the studies, maybe you can expect about 3 to 5 pounds of lean body mass, right? Well, what if a creatine supplement came out that somehow, just in theory here, they came out with a dosing protocol where if you did this dose several times a day, somehow they had a protocol and it was consistently shown to add 10 pounds of lean body mass, still just creatine. 99% of those in the natural bodybuilding community would take it, right? They say, this is amazing, like this is fantastic, we can get these great results out of creatine. Almost everybody would do it. Now, what if instead there was a pill that had testosterone that somehow just went to your muscles, right? I mean, that's the point, what they're trying to do with SARMs these days, somehow didn't shut you down at all and didn't have any negative consequences other than that same 10 pounds of muscle. Well, now it's a hormone, so a lot of people would say, oh, I don't think I would take that because it's testosterone. Okay, but why? What is the actual logical reason other than that we've just had this ingrained in our head, well, it's steroids, it's wrong, it's illegal. In this example, obviously it would be legal, right, to just go along with a thought experiment. So if you're saying that, again, there's no side effects, you would take a creatine supplement that somehow was adding 10 pounds of muscle, but maybe you wouldn't take the testosterone because it's called testosterone, even though there were no side effects. And then, then you get into like injectable testosterone that has side effects and does shut you down. And my point is just that at the end of the day, I think the actual reason that 95% of us will not take steroids is because of side effects, not because it's actually immoral or something. You want the results. And so you probably would do it if there were no consequences to it, no negative consequences to it. So when it comes to plastic surgeries, it's like, well, are you really totally fine with, let's say, balding, slowly losing all of your hair, if you could take a pill that could stop that with no side effects? Would you really not do that? Some people probably wouldn't. And there are pills like finasteride, but finasteride has negative side effects, right? I mean, there's plenty of potential negative side effects by dramatically lowering and blocking your DHT, right? So that's probably a good reason potentially not to take it. I think most people are probably fine to take finasteride, but I think there's legitimate reasons not to take it as well. But if you could just hit a button and not ever get a wrinkle, if you could hit a button and not lose your hair, if you could just hit a button and something that you're insecure about would just be fixed, just like that, for no cost and no side effects, pretty much everybody would do that, right? I mean, there's something that you would change more than likely. And I'm not saying that because you think that, you should then get surgery or do something dramatic. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that I think in reality, we talk about all this stuff on acceptance, but it's like I'm talking to 1,000+ people right now who spend hours and hours and hours going to the gym to look better, right? Don't tell me that you're doing it just for your health. It's great that it helps your health. I do it largely for health at this point, but don't tell me that the reason you got into the gym and you spent hours and hours and hours curling and benching was for your health. It's because you want bigger arms. Girls doing hip thrusts want a bigger butt. We are doing this largely to look better. And so if you are spending literally thousands of hours of your life doing this thing, putting in tons of effort to look better, again, I think there's a societal conditioning that, oh, well, it's exercise, it's good. Oh, it's surgery, it's bad. But at the end of the day, we're doing it for results. And so do I think that it's cheating? Obviously, if you're competing in an organization or something like that, yes, steroids are cheating. But if there were no side effects to it, it's just like, okay, then great. And if there's somebody who wants to have a procedure done, I mean, I've seen girls who have cried after getting a nose job because they're so happy with how much better they look. I know women who have had a life of insecurity and then they get breast implants and they feel so much better about it. I'm not saying that's the right thing to do. I do, again, I want to keep going back to it. I think there is a balance, and we can all think of these people who have had so much plastic surgery done. It's like, wow, this person is really insecure, has a lot of problems. However, that is the cliche that we see. The reality is most people who get some plastic surgery, you can't tell because it's done well. I am actually 62 years old. I've just had fantastic plastic surgery. But really, it's something that I think is an individual decision. I don't think it should be shamed. And I think, hopefully if it gets to the point that it's too much, they have somebody in their lives who could say, look, maybe this is not the route you should be going down, and maybe we should take a step back and work on ourselves. So again, I'm not for or against it. I'm just saying if you are going to have an opinion on something like that, I think it should be logically consistent. If you have a problem with it, why do you have a problem with it? At the end of the day, I think if it can make somebody happier, then it's not necessarily a problem. And if we actually look at the evidence on it, studies do show that people who get plastic surgery are more satisfied and happier about that particular thing than they were beforehand. So there is a sustained, which is important, a sustained increase in happiness in those who get that work done, who get cosmetic procedures done. This is something I talked about with Dr. Gary Linkoff on the podcast as well. So again, that's a relevant point. We absolutely live in a society where people value beauty and appearance. And so I do think it is probably beneficial to your life to not look like a slob, for instance, and to dress well and to be kempt and to look generally better and healthier. And as a final point, if I think of the work that I do, I would just mention that there is also sometimes a blend of cosmetic and functionality. So for instance, with a lot of my patients, maybe we do veneers, maybe we do crowns, but in those situations, we might be restoring function if somebody has a collapsed bite. I'll show an example here of somebody who went through a divorce and decided to get this work done. And functionally, it was a huge benefit. You can see that they had such worn down teeth before, and now they are much more able to chew. They've got what we call vertical dimension back, but they are super happy with it, not because of that reason. They're super happy with it and far more confident being back out there in the dating world because they have a great smile now. And I think most people would not really argue with that. I don't think most people would say, well, you shouldn't have a better smile. But then when it comes to some of these other things like Botox and fillers, which I can also do on patients, we have more of a problem with it. And again, it's just like, well, where is that line? Again, I'm not trying to say that getting Botox, for instance, is life-changing in a positive way, but I am just saying that we kind of have to look at being logically consistent there and where is that line. And ultimately, it's an individual decision. I think as long as you have the right headspace about it and it's not oh, this is going to make me a better person or this is going to solve my problems in life, but just that if it comes from hey, you know what, this is something I'd like to improve, and if I can do it with a reasonable amount of effort and not stress too much about it, then sure. So guys, that is the topic for today. I think it could be maybe a little bit controversial because it is opposing a lot of the videos we see about just all self-acceptance and 100% acceptance. I think it's an interesting topic. You know, it's something that is relevant to my day-to-day job and what I do with patients, at least tangentially. And I think it's obviously applicable to most people watching this video because if you're watching the video, you're interested in the topic, obviously, but also because a lot of this is in the fitness industry when it comes to acceptance and self-improvement and improving our appearance. So let me know in the comment section if you totally disagree, if you agree, if you want to see any more videos on this topic. I could certainly get into more about the cosmetic procedures that can be done and whatnot. So subscribe for more, and I will see you guys next time.